Hey, what's up, YouTube? Photographer Ronix from Ronix Photographer, and today I'll complete another retouching and color grading tutorial on this channel. And in this tutorial today, we're going to be retouching and color grading this image, and the major emphasis is on color grading. I know it has been a long time ever since I uploaded a new video on this channel, and right now you're going to be learning about how to get those rich, beautiful, and amazing skin tones for your images in Photoshop. So this is more of a skin tone color grading tutorial, and you're also going to be learning about skin retouching, but basically it is about getting those amazing skin tones. So it is more of a color grading tutorial, so stick around as we edit this image together. And before I can do that, this is a raw image, as you can see, and this is my camera raw window, as you can see it. And I used the Canon 60 camera, and I shot this image using an 85mm at ISO 100. And uh, for my lighting for this very image, I used a Godox AD600 BM. And also I shot the image at 400th of a second and at f6.3 to get as much detail as I could for this image. So enough of the talking, let's start learning. Yeah, because when I'm doing tutorials we are learning together. So first of all, this is my very first step for color grading. So what I usually do, I first come to camera calibration before I do anything else. So I'm going to come to camera calibration right here. And for those with newer versions of Camera Raw, because I'm using 9.9, I just find it user friendly. Don't ask me why I prefer to use this, but I just love the way its interface is. So for the newer versions, you'll get your camera calibration icon around right here. I hope you guys can see my cursor. So that's why you're going to find camera calibration. So for my older version, this is my camera calibration. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to calibrate this image. So calibrating is more of getting the colors look in a particular way you want them to be. So I'm going to come right here and I change it to the picture style I was shooting in on my camera. So usually I shoot all my portraits in landscape. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to choose a landscape. So when you choose landscape, basically this is more of like how I was looking at the image on my camera screen, but that's not enough. So we're going to come back right here to our basic adjustments right here. So we're going to do some little bit of adjustments, and remember, for me personally, I shoot with Canon. So remember, when you're shooting with Canon, remember Canon and Sony usually have so much reds in their pictures, or the photos turn out to be having more of the reds. So remember what you're going to do right now. You're going to try to work around the reds in this image. So as usual, I first prefer to pull down my highlights all the way, because I want to get rid of these white highlights. So I just prefer to knock them all the way down. And also my whites are up to around negative 73. Then in order to get back my rich black contrast, I prefer to pull down my blacks too, like that. I hope that is fine. Then I'm going to come to my shadows and I'm going to pull them up like that. Remember, for our calibration, we're on landscape because I shoot in landscape. So whichever you're using is whichever picture style you're using for when you're shooting is the one you have to select when you're calibrating your image. And remember, calibration is the first step of skin tone color grading for all your portraits. So after doing that, I'm going to come to my contrast. I'm going to knock it up because I want to get a little bit of more contrast in my image. I'm going to pump up a little bit of clarity to around 4. Remember, I told you Canon usually has so much reds. I hope you guys can see the amount of reds in this image. So we want to work around that, and uh, remember the reds are part of tint. So let me first show you what I mean. So when you turn this all the way up, you see it adds magentas or more reds. So in order to reduce on the magentas, the opposite of magenta is green. So you're going to try to move this slider all the way towards the left to get that nice warm look, as you can see. And now we're going to pump up our temperatures a little bit. I'm going to warm up this image at up to around 4900 for my temperatures, and I feel I still have so much shadows. And I'm also going to pump up the exposure. So remember, this is the first step for color grading. So for this image, as I don't know if you guys follow me on my Instagram, but those who noticed, I changed the color of these leaves right here to a bluish kind of feel. So what I did for the leaves, I came to the HSL panel, the hue, saturation, and luminance, and what I did, I came to the hues, and I knocked the greens all the way towards my right to give it more vibrance, because I wanted my images to stand out from this kind of busy background. That's why I had to alternate or change the color. So as you can see, that was done, and I came to my saturation and I desaturated them even more to around -24. So we're going to open this image into our Photoshop, and you're going to do some retouching on this image. And if at all you're watching and you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because we want to keep on growing and learning together. And the bigger the numbers, the more better we become. So remember, we are posting for Instagram, and usually you have first of all crop your images in a ratio of 4:5, because when you post the image on Instagram, it is going to occupy the whole screen, especially for most Instagram users are mobile users, or they use their mobile phone. So that's why we're going to crop this image in a ratio of 4:5 or 8:10. So we're going to crop it. I think this is fine and beautiful, because we're just trying to get rid of that so much busy background of the building right in the background. So click enter on your keyboard, and yeah, this is our image right now. So we're going to be doing some little bit of skin retouching for this image, and as you can see, our model didn't have, sorry about this, as you can see, the model didn't have so much skin imperfections. I don't know what is taking place right here. Yeah, so this is our image. So she didn't have too much of the skin imperfections. You can see her right now, like she has a nice skin. So we're going to be doing less of the retouching for this very image. So first of all, we're going to be doing frequency separation using a mixer brush tool, and we're also going to fine tune our retouching. And if at all you have been watching my tutorials, you know these various steps well, but if at all you're new, I'm going to be doing it for you too. So first of all, we're going to start by duplicating the background layer. Sorry if I'm too fast. So this is why I'm going to slow down, so that each and everyone is going to understand the amazing frequency separation technique in Photoshop. So what we're going to do, we start by duplicating the background layer. And remember, frequency separation is basically a skin retouching technique that divides the images into two, that is the textures and the skin tones or the colors. So it gets the textures and puts them on one layer, so that you can only work with the textures alone, and it gets the colors and puts them on a different layer, so that you can work with the colors or the skin tones alone. So when you combine the two layers, you'll get the image that is well defined and a beautiful image. So let me show you guys what that is. So we're going to start by creating those two layers by duplicating the background layer by dragging and dropping it right here, or you can just click Ctrl or Command J twice. Yeah, Ctrl J twice to create these two layers. And usually the middle layer is usually our color, or you can call it a low frequency layer, and the top layer is usually our texture, or you can just call it the high frequency layer. So like on our skins, the textures are usually exposed, that's why the texture layer is on top. So you're going to first of all deactivate the texture layer and select the low frequency or the color layer. So we want to remain with only the colors or the skin tones on this sphere layer, and in order to do that, you are going to come, or we are going to come to filter, then come to blur, and come to Gaussian blur, this right here. So when you click on that, it is going to bring this dialog box. So right here you have I don't know if this is the zoom out and this is the zoom in tool, or the negative magnification and the positive magnification tool. So when you click on it, it is going to give you a better view of your image. So just click in the middle and look for that area that seems to have more textures than the rest of the skin. And for this case, we are going to go with the forehead of our model. So we're going to move this slider until we can see less of the skin texture on the forehead right here. And in order to do that, start by moving this slider. But as you're moving it, make sure you can still notice the facial structures like the eyes, the nose, and the lips. So we're going to move it like that, as you can see me do that. So you have to be careful with this step because it really defines or gives you the best and natural skin textures at the end of your retouching process. So you have to be really careful with selecting your radius for the frequency separation. So you're going to go with 5 because right now we can't see the skin texture, but you can only see the colors and the skin tones for this very image. So just click OK. So we are going to come and select back at the texture or high frequency layer and click on the eye icon to bring it back and deactivate it actually. So when you click on this eye icon, so the next step in this layer, we are going to only remain with the textures. So remember, for this layer we only want the textures and we don't need the colors or the skin tones. So in order to do that, we are going to come right here to image like that and come to apply image. So when you come to apply image, you get this little window right here. Remember, we only want to remain with something called like a 50% gray of the image. Remember, gray has no color in it. So in order to achieve that look, we are going first of all come and select remember, we are now extracting the textures from the color or low frequency layer. So come and select it, and remember what I have just said, we are subtracting. So come to the blending and look for subtract. So when you click on subtract, I know most of you are not going to get these results the way they look right here, but in order to get them looking like this, make sure invert is not checked or selected and your preview is checked or selected. So make sure your opacity is at 100% and the scale is 2 and the offset 128. Make sure you put in these two values because remember, For the colors we have 256, and in order to divide that, when you divide 256 by 2, yeah, you get 128. That's why we have put 128 to have a medium of the colors. So 128 and the scale is 2. So when you do that and you zoom into the image, you can see right now we only have the textures. I just don't know if you guys can see these textures or the outlines for the image. You can see we only have the textures for the image. So when you're done with that, just come and click OK. So right now you may be wondering, why is your image looking the way it is right now? So just come, here is the trick, come to normal, and now look for linear light among the blending options. So when you click on linear light, you'll get back the image the way it was before. So meaning we are almost done with creating our frequency separation group, and in order to complete that, select the two layers by clicking Ctrl or Command and clicking on the two layers, and you can just drag and drop them to this group icon, or you can just click Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard to put them in a group. So you're going to name this a little group frequency separation. So that is all for creating a frequency separation group. So remember, we are now going to be learning about how to use a mixer brush tool and how to get the right settings for a mixer brush tool. So in order, let me give you some brief information about how a mixer brush tool works. A mixer brush tool works in a way that it blends the unevenness in the skin tones, and it gives us a smooth skin tone transitions for our images, so that we can have some little bit of uniformity. You can see we have some dark patches right here on the forehead. So we're going to be having that mixer brush tool to help us blend the unevenness in these skin tones. You can see, so that we can even have smooth skin tone transitions for our image. So we are going to do that in a bit. So come and select the high frequency layer, and now here is the trick for mixer brush tool so that you can apply it well and nicely. Come right here and create a black and white adjustment layer. So when you do that, your image is going to turn to black and white. So this is more of creating a help layer for our retouching. So just come and to the red and click right here, hold down and just drag towards the left. You can see right now we can see where the skin tones or patches are for our model. So just close that. Now remember, you're working with skin tones, so make sure you have selected the color or frequency layer, because skin tones are involved in this very layer. Then come to under your brushes, right click and look for your mixer brush tool, but mine is right here. So this is my mixer brush tool, and for settings, I know this is where most people get it wrong, and they tend not to get the mixer brush tool working really well and nicely for their retouching. So just come right here first of all and select clean brush. So drop down this and select clean brush. Make sure this right here is selected, because when I leave the cursor right here, I'm going to see what is going to show us. We want the brush to clean itself after every brush stroke on the image. So that's why you have to select it, because you're going to be applying the same brush on different parts of the skin. And make sure the wetness is really kind of low. You're going to go with a wetness of 9%. The load we are going to go with 75%, and the mix at 90, and the flow at 100. Make sure sample all layers is not selected or checked, because it is going to give you a rough image if at all it is selecting from the texture layer. So make sure you're only working on this fair layer. And in order to achieve that, make sure you don't select sample all layers. So we are going to start blending our image. So you can see those patches. So we're going to start. You can increase your brush by using the left and the right brackets. And when you're mixing or blending the skin tones for your images, make sure you mix the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. And where the midtones and the highlights are transitioning, make sure you blend that transition to get nice results. So enough for the talking, let's start working. So you can see we have just gotten rid of a patch right here, and I'm going to be showing you guys uh, our progress as we blend this very image. Like I said, the model didn't have uh, a skin to do so much work on, so really taking time to explain so that even beginners right there can learn about this amazing mixer brush technique. I know people have various ways of retouching, but I've really found the mixer brush tool really powerful, and it has really upgraded my retouching. So just be attentive as we are learning about the amazing mixer brush tool in Photoshop. So let's turn the black and white layer off. So let's see the progress for the image. So that's the before after just a few brush strokes, and we are really having a nice and beautiful image. So we're going to continue blending the unevenness, and remember, make sure you always come back and select your color or frequency layer. So just continue blending. You can see I'm mixing these midtones right here alone, right here. Then we have some sort of contouring or shadows, and I'm mixing them alone. Then we have a highlight right here, I'm mixing it alone. And we have some sort of shadows, then transition like that. We have some sort of shadows, and you can see how, let's see the before and after. So I say before after. You can see the amazing power of the mixer brush tool. So let me show you guys. That's the before after. So let's zoom in a little because we want to fine tune the nose area. So turn this back on, and we have the shadow right here on the nose. So remember, we are working on our color or low frequency layer. So we have this shadow on the left. Let's blend that. You can see how we are doing this. So when you come to this highlight, reduce the brush by using the brackets on the keyboard, and now just blend there. You can see how beautiful the image is turning out to look or be. So you shouldn't worry if at all you skip or miss out on some areas, because I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to go about that and how to refine your portrait like that. You can see how amazing the Mr. Brush tool is. So you can come and blend right here on the upper lip. So right now we are done with the face area. Remember, we're just blending the unevenness in the skin tone. So this is the before after. You can see how beautiful the image is turning out to look or be. So we are now going to start blending the arms or the hands. Remember, skin retouching is a general process, and it is not only done on the face but on the rest of the areas, because they also contain or have skin. And now let's blend these areas. because I know most retouchers tend to forget these tiny, tiny vital areas. And when you don't work on these areas, someone would not take you as a serious photographer or retoucher because you left out the amazing parts of beauty. So make sure you do this and take your time. You shouldn't actually rush because when you use a mixer brush tool on these areas that are not the face, you don't need to fine tune them later. Like how we are going to work on the face of the model. So make sure you really take your time when you're working with the other body parts apart from the model's face, because most of the time the face contains more textures than the rest of the body, because you can't have more skin texture on the hands than the face. So that's why we have to fine tune. And when someone is looking at our images, the first attention is drawn by the face. So you can as well work without that black and white or hair player, so that you can clearly see the areas that don't have uh, nice skin tone transition. So this is the before so far and the after. Before after, you can see what we have really done. So what we're going to do right now, we are now going to fine tune the image. And in order to do that, first of all, come and select the black and white layer and drag it to the trash can icon like that. So come back and select your color or low frequency layer because we are still working with the skin tones. So get your lasso tool, make sure feathering is around 21 to 25 pixels. And for this case, you're going to go with 23 pixels because we want a really defined selection for the image. So you're now going to zoom all the way in, and now we are going to select the area of the skin like this. You can see that. So right now this step is more of fine tuning. Yeah, it is more of fine tuning like that. You can see that. So let me repeat the lasso tool settings for your retouching. So I'm going to reset this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first of all select your lasso tool. This is the lasso tool. Just right click and get your lasso tool. The feathering should be 23 pixels and this should be checked right here. So you come right here to the skin area like this and make a selection. So when you're making this selection, make sure you resist from selecting the eyebrows or the hair. We only need to work or fine tune only and only the skin area. And when you're doing this selection, just make sure that you only select according to the shape of the area. You can see how this shape has been made on this very image. So when you're going to come right back to filter, blur, and come back to Gaussian blur after making a selection. So we're going to move this little slider until when we see the perfect skin for our model. So just come and start moving this tiny slider. So you can see, I think at around 15 pixels. Yeah, 15. I'll just type it in. So at around 15 pixels, we have a beautiful skin texture. So the other trick about this, remember we had 5 pixels initially. So right now the trick right here is just get this radius you used when you're going to do your frequency separation and just multiply it by 3. So 5 by 3 you get 15. So when you just type in 15, you get the best skin for for your image right here. So just come and click OK. So we're going to apply that effect on the rest of the skin of our model. So just come, make the selection according to the shape of that particular area, like that. Right click and click on Gaussian blur. So we're going to be doing that for the rest of the skin area of the model. Right click and click on Gaussian blur. You can see the difference it is just making to our image. Right click. So we are going to be doing this for almost all the area of the model's face. So right click, apply Gaussian blur. So just come, make a shape right here, like that. Right click, click on Gaussian blur. You can see how it is just fine tuning while it is leaving the natural and original skin textures for our image. You can see that. So like I said, this is basically more of a skin retouching tutorial, but today the major emphasis is going to be on color grading. So stick around as I'm going to be showing you guys how I do color grade my images, and I get those rich nice black uh, shades of my shadows, and I make my image really have beautiful skin tones at the end of my retouching process. So after doing this, we are going to be removing these uh, skin imperfections. Yeah, you're going to be removing the skin imperfections, that is the blemishes. Like you have seen me ignore this particular area of the highlight. I don't want to get rid of this highlight because when I make a selection right here and I apply the Gaussian blur, you're going to close out this beautiful highlight for this particular area. So when you feel like you want to apply the Gaussian blur with the lasso tool, make sure you fade the effect or reduce on that effect on that area. So in order to do that, just come click Shift Control F on the keyboard. Yeah, Shift Command F for Mac users, and just turn this all the way down so that you can retain your beautiful highlight. So that is done and fine. So we're going to be learning about how to fine tune the image a little bit more using uh, blemish removal, and we're also going to be using the clone stamp tool because it helps me get the best and perfect blemish removal. So this is the clone stamp tool right here, and for the settings it is opacity 100, flow 100, and align is selected, and we are working on our current layer because we only want to work on the textures on the texture layer. So remember, blemishes are majorly part of skin texture. So just come and right click. You can see, sorry, you don't right click, just click on a clean area. Make sure hold down the Alt button, then click on a clean area to make a sample and paint over the blemish you want to remove. So hold down the alternate button, then choose or select from a clean area and just paint over the blemish you want to get rid of. So basically that is how the clone stamp really works. So we're going to remove these tiny blemishes. Remember, blemish removal contributes a biggest percentage to your skin retouching processes. So make sure you really take your time when you are doing this blemish removal. So I'm going to try to eliminate this smile line on the model because I just don't find it really nice and appealing to me. That's why I'm getting rid of it. So it depends on you as a retoucher what you really prefer. So I'm not going to get rid of all these tiny little hairs. on the model's upper lip. So I'm just going to leave that. So for now, let's deal with only these skin imperfections, or the tiny blemishes on the model's skin. So let's get done with that. And now we are going to do the color grading. And for this tutorial, I'm not going to be doing the global dodging and banding, because I don't want this to be a very long tutorial. I think I've made you guys stay on this tutorial up to this time, because I know most of you would love to learn about how to get those rich, nice, and amazing skin tones. So let's see what frequency separation has done to this image. So you can see this is the before after. You can see how beautiful the image has turned out to be. You can see before after. So right now we are going to be doing the color grading for this very image. So this is going to be color grading part 2. Remember, we started from camera raw. Right now we are going into a more advanced color grading. So we are going to first come right down here and click on selective color, and now we're going to play around with these sliders. So remember, skin tones usually are basically in the red channels, the reds and yellows. So basically we are going to add we're going to move the cyan slider to around -3. Then we want to add yellows. Remember, we are working on the red channel right here. We're going to add yellows to the image at around 2. I think this is fine. So you can see before after. It is not really too much, because we don't want to change the look of the model. Then we are going to come to brightness and contrast, and we want to add contrast while we are adding rich skin tones to the model. And in order to do that, you're going to click on use legacy. So click on it and activate it. Make sure the tick is on. And now we are going to move it towards the right a little bit to around 3. I think this is fine. Then what we are going to do, we are now going to add those rich black fills in our shadows. So come right back to selective color, and this time around, you know what to do, select the blacks. So we are working on the blacks in the black. So come to the black option. I don't know if I make sense. Leave it to relative, and now move this slider to add those rich, nice, and black to our shadows. So you can see this is the before after. So right now we are going to be doing the eye whitening for our model, and we're also going to be doing a little bit of more color grading in camera raw. So we're going to create a stamp visible layer for all we have done by clicking shift control alternate E on the keyboard. For Mac users, it is shift command option E on the keyboard. Create a stamp visible layer or a screenshot for all we have done. So you're going to duplicate that by clicking Ctrl J, then come right back to filter, then come to camera raw filter. So it is going to load back to camera raw, and we are going to be doing some little bit more of color grading to our beautiful image. So here we are in camera raw. So first things first, we are going to be doing the eye whitening. So I'm going to select, hold left click and zoom into the eye. So this is the zoom tool. So hold down the left click and just drag towards the right. So these are the eyes. So we want to be doing the eye whitening. So click on your adjustment brush. This is our adjustment brush, or you can just click K on the keyboard. So these are my settings I use. So I'm going to be reading for you guys these settings, so that you can just feed them in. in your adjustment brush. And the good thing with the adjustment brush, when you're using it, you put these settings only once. So every time you open the camera raw filter and you click on the adjustment brush, it is going to be having these settings by default, whether you restart your Photoshop or not. So my temperatures are usually at -30 because I want to remove the warm tones from the white area of the eye. And my tint is 71. My highlights are 2. My whites at 4. Highlights 2, whites 4. The rest are left at 0, as you can see. And now we're going to come all the way down because we are working with the white area of the eye and we are removing color from the white area. So remember, we have to put the saturation down. So I'm going to leave it at -74. So we are going to just start painting or brushing over the white area. Make sure you're really careful with this because you don't want to desaturate the skin area. So make sure you only paint over that white area. And remember, when you're doing this, make sure you don't paint over this corner because we want our eyes to look as natural as possible at the end of the retouching. So let's do this, as you can see, like that. Paint over only the white area, and it is the same technique we are going to be using for the teeth of our model. So you're going to come right down here and click on adjustment brush. You can see when you click on it, our settings are still there. This is amazing. So just paint over the teeth. So you can see I'm painting over just a tooth at a time because I don't try to desaturate the other parts that I may not want to be discolored or desaturated. So I'm just whitening. It is these small steps that really up your photography game by biggest margin. So you can see right now we have whitened the eyes, and now the image has now transformed and it looks beautiful. But remember, we want to change these greens a little bit more. Come back at the basic adjustments like this. So these are our basic adjustments, and right now we want to add some little bit more of the vibrance to this beautiful image. So I'm going to leave it at around 10. Then I'm going to desaturate it a little bit like that to around -3. You can see I'm going to pull add a little bit more of vibrance to this image like that. So I'm going to come right here to our hue and saturation once again, and I'm going to play around with the greens because I feel like I want more attention to the model than the greens behind. So I'm going to come to the hues and I'm going to pump up my greens a little bit more. So right now you can see how the image is now standing out from the background. You can see how beautiful it is. So I'm going to come back to the basic panel right here, and I could add a little bit more of the contrast to the image, and I'm going to pump up my shadows a little bit more, then also pump up my exposure a little bit more. So I think this image now looks fine and amazing. Just come and click OK. So I want to show you guys, I'm going to put all our color grading in one group, and the color grading is going to include the eye and teeth whitening. Ctrl G, put them in a group. So this is color grading. So you can see this is the image before color grading. So remember, we did color grading when we are just doing it in camera raw as we are processing the raw image. And now this is the color grading after, before, after, before, after. This is the color grading after skin retouching. So basically this is the image before, after, before, after, before, after, you can see how beautiful this image has been transformed. And if at all you love this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe this channel, and don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section if at all you have learned something from this channel, and keep supporting us. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet another retouching tutorial, and stay safe.